waiver wire guys, studs that you can pick up off there that might help your team out. I'll let you know who is like my dream like lineup for each for the week. I'll also tell you my nightmare lineup for each week, as well as some players that I would advise to either trade away or trade for. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it with my waiver wire studs. Starting out with that quarterback, you got Gardner Minshew, right? A lot of people probably don't have this man on their roster, and rightfully so. I didn't have him on my roster. He was on the waiver wire in my leagues before the season started. But if you're looking for a good, solid backup that can do you justice, potentially in a league that you have a lot of people in, I think Gardner would be a good person to have as that section option. I don't think he's going to go off for you. I don't think he's going to be amazing, but you could probably plug him in. He'll get you a solid 10, 15 points. And that might be what you need to get you over the hump, potentially, if your starting quarterback is playing a tough matchup. He's owned. All my statistics are based on NFL Network's fantasy, not ESPN or anything like that. He's owned in about 27.8% of leagues, and I think if you're going for someone that's easy to get, that you really, if you need someone like that, Gardner's your guy. My second guy is Ben Roethlisberger. Now, I'm a little bit hesitant with him as well, of course, because of his injury history. But if you're going for someone who's cheap, who you can get for on the low, who can give you a lot of production, Ben is your guy. I remember so many times I would play fantasy football, and not only would I have to watch the Steelers, which is my least favorite team, go off, I watched this man drop like 40 points on my head, and there's nothing I can do. Big Ben has big game potential for you. You put him in there, he's down. He's bound to put up at least 30, 40 points at some point in the season. He's owned in about 50.9% of leagues. If you're looking for a guy you can plug and he's gonna go and do his business, Big Ben is your guy. And you better check if he's on your waiver wire or not, because about half the leagues he's on the waiver wire, and I don't know how he's on that list. And then up next, somebody that might be a little bit of a stash guy, someone that people are obviously sleeping on, people who are someone who is definitely going to make some noise towards the later end of the season. Maybe he'll help you make a playoff push. But Justin Herbert, no, I know he's a backup. I know he's not getting you any points right now. But if you're looking for an asset that could help you in the future, Justin might be your guy. He's got a good receiving core around him. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. He's got a good tight end in Hunter Henry. He has got a great receiving back in Austin Eckler. This guy could be a really good player, and I think that would show in fantasy once he starts playing for the team. And if he does do that, you might want to grab him now before people start realizing that, oh, this guy might be something special. I need to get him now. He's owned in 0.6% of leagues, so odds are the guy is not on any team. If you want somebody that again that you want to take a risk on and potentially could be a very high reward and a really low risk, honestly, because if you drop someone, it's like you're probably thinking about dropping them anyways. So you might get somebody that could benefit you way far in the end, potentially in your playoff games, things of that sort. Up next, we got running backs. Now, of course, the big name in Sunday Night Football was Malcolm Brown. Now, Malcolm showed out to be what seemed like the starting running back for that team, at least for now. It's kind of shaky for me when you have a bunch of backs on the same team that are splitting carries with, in this team, for instance, you have Malcolm Brown, you have Cam Akers, and you have Daryl Henderson, all good backs. Um, I think Malcolm Brown solidified himself as the starter, but it's kind of like who's has the hot hand, I guess, for that night. So, for instance, if you start Malcolm Brown, potentially Cam Akers is going to go off and Malcolm Brown's going to struggle. But at the same time, if you start Malcolm Brown, he might go off and Cam Akers is going to struggle or Daryl Henderson's going to struggle. And if that's a risk you're willing to take, this is a guy you want. Malcolm Brown is owned in 6.6% of leagues before this recent waiver wire. If you want a guy that's going to go in, he's going to guarantee you a couple points. He's like a boomer bust guy. He's either going to do great for you or he's going to do horrible for you. And if that's a risk you're willing to take, this is your guy. Malcolm Brown off the Rams. He's going into Philly this week, who got dismantled by Washington. So potentially that could be a good match. Up next, my only other running back is James Robinson off the Jaguars. I had a lot of questions about the Jaguars going into what was going to be this season without Leonard Fournette. Nobody really knew who was going to be that feature back. I thought it was going to be Chris Thompson, but then they threw in James Robinson, and he had a good game. And he's on in only about 28.5% of leagues. If you pick this guy up, he's a starting running back. I mean, you can't really get that on the waiver wire many or too far often, especially if you're in a league of 12 or more. James Robinson could be a decent guy that you could pick up that could help you in some sticky situations. I've been in those situations where you got all three of your running backs are playing against really good defenses, and you want somebody to put in there that you feel a little bit better about. And James Robinson can do that for you. They're not going to outscore a lot of people. They're not going to have this crazy play scheme. So maybe that results in running the ball a little bit more. James Robinson is showed that he could be a good player. They ran the ball pretty well down the Colts front seven, which I think is relatively good. So I was a little bit surprised about that. So maybe that could be something that'll benefit you guys in your future. Up next, Robbie Anderson. He's my only wide receiver on here. But Robbie Anderson, people forget how good of a fantasy wide receiver this guy is. He is owned in only 11.7% of leagues. But this dude is a touchdown machine, big play machine. If you put him in there, he's another guy that can do you amazing. He can drop you 20 plus, but he could also drop you like three. So it just kind of depends. He's in a situation where he's across the field from DJ Moore, who's going to attract the attention of the first receiver. So maybe Robbie Anderson is going to get some more looks because he's on a somewhat worse corner. You got Teddy Bridgewater throwing the ball, so you got to see how that progresses. A lot of the attention is on CMC, so maybe that could open things up for Robbie Anderson. I can't tell you how many times I've been really mad because the guy across from me started Robbie Anderson, and he went off for an 80-yard bomb touchdown, and then the game was over for me. Robbie Anderson is a great player. If you need a good, solid, flex, maybe wide receiver too, I wouldn't count on him to be your top wide receiver. But if you're looking for a good backup, potentially to get you again out of a 60 situation, Robbie Anderson is definitely going to be your guy. Up next, you got tight ends. My first one is Greg Olson. Now, I don't know how you guys don't have this man on your team. I know he was hurt a lot. I know in Carolina, he's come off some rough years, with Cam on and off the field, with his injury issues. But as what he showed me in Seattle week one showed me that he still has what it takes to be a productive tight end. He's not too far removed from being a Pro Bowler. This dude is a great tight end. He's going to catch you some touchdowns. He's got sure hands. Uh, he's definitely a red zone threat for that Seattle team. The last time they had a big tight end target go there was Jimmy Graham, and we saw how that fell apart. But I think Greg Olson is a little bit different in this situation. I think he has a chance to be really, really good there. Um, he's only owned in about 19.7% of leagues. If you need a guy that's going to go in there, plug it in, do a good job for you, pick up Greg Olson. And my last tight end is CJ Uzuma off the Bengals. This guy is only owned in 0.2% of leagues. Are you crazy? This dude, he puts up consistent numbers every week. He'll get you 5 catches. He'll get you 50 yards. That's 10 points. And if you're looking for a guy that you're desperate, you need a tight end, you need it bad, pick up this dude. I know he's wavering between the tight end one and tight end two on that team. But as Joe Burrow progresses, so will his play. This dude is a stud. I hate playing against him as a Ravens fan. He is a guy that you need to pick up if you want a solid backup. If you want him to throw him in the flex, pick up this man because I guarantee you, he's there in your league. Up next, you got Jason Myers, kicker on the Seattle Seahawks. Now, typically when I'm looking for kickers, I'm either looking for the best of the best, Harrison Butker, uh, Justin Tucker, those type of guys, or I'm looking for a kicker that's just on a really good offense. And what's better than a Seattle offense that just lit up Atlanta? Jason Myers is only owned in about 36% of leagues. He's definitely a sleeper kicker pick. If you need somebody to plug in there, he's gonna hit the kicks. He's a very accurate kicker. He might not get you those deep 50 bombs. He might not get you a whole lot of field goals because of how good Seattle's offense is. But with Seattle and how good they really are, they're going to go down there. They're going to score touchdowns, and that's a steady, few points every game. And keep in mind, of course, they're going to kick field goals, right? Just and Jason Myers is going to benefit from that. And if you pick him up and he's on your team, so will you. And Jason Myers is actually the starting kicker on my team right now. So take that what you will. And then my last waiver wire stud is Daniel Carlson off the Raiders, kicker. Only owned in about 21.4% of leagues. This guy, the reason I have him a little bit higher, even with an Oakland offense that isn't amazing, is simply because that's kind of what another thing that I look for in a kicker, right? Oakland's offense is going to do some stuff, right? They're going to get them into the opponent's side of the field. They might not always finish, which is exactly the type of bait you want as a kicker. If you're not going for the top of the line guys or the high powered offense, this is the type of kicker you want. A guy that you can trust to hit you some, 30, 40-yard field goals, hit you two or three a game. And that's all you really need it from your kicker. If your kicker can get you a consistent 8 to 10 points, you know, generally, I'm pretty happy with that. So, and I think Daniel Carson can definitely do that for you, and potentially a little bit more if Oakland's offense can step up. They put Henry Ruggs in there more often, and they get stopped a little bit more, which is weird to say, but that's kind of true. Up next, we got my dream team for week 2. So if you guys got any of these guys on your team, if you're thinking about them, you got to start them. First, you got Aaron Rodgers against the Lions. Do I need to say anything else? I mean, this dude, the Lions just gave up 27 points to Mitch Trubisky. What do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do? A guy that just carved up a very good Minnesota defense, and now he's going into Detroit with their best cornerback being a rookie going up against the top 5 wide receiver in the league. I think this is going to be an easy matchup for Aaron Rodgers. He's easily going to drop the same or even better numbers than he did last week. Aaron Rodgers is going to blow up this week. If he's on your team, if you have an option to start this man, you need to. And if you don't, you're playing yourself. My running back is Derrick Henry. And now Derrick Henry is going up against this Jacksonville team that's depleted, that's horrible. And he just ran all over a very solid Denver front seven. And now he's going up against a Jacksonville team that's depleted, that's complete trash. I don't see him succeeding, or I don't see the Jacksonville Jaguars succeeding in stopping this man one bit. And especially towards the end of the game when they're going to run the ball, they're going to try to milk the clock because obviously we know who's going to win this game unless something crazy happens. But Derrick Henry is bound for another 100-yard gain a game. He's going to score a touchdown or something. He's going to have a great He's going to have a great game. If you don't start this man, what are you doing? Up next, my first wide receiver is Adam Thielen. Now, I know. He's coming off a crazy week. Why wouldn't you start this man? But if you have any option to start this man, you need to do it now. Because the Colts defense just allowed Gardner Minshew to dice him up. You put in probably a top 10 receiver in the league in Adam Thielen with Kirk Cousins, who I think is a step up from Gardner Minshew. If you don't, there's something wrong. But Adam Thielen is going to blow up this week. Mark my words, he's going to drop at least 20 points. And if you don't start him, you're going to lose. My second wide receiver is, of course, Julio Jones. Now, Julio, of course, if you have him on your team, you're never going to bench this man. I debate benching him on my bye just because I want him in my lineup. But Julio is going up against a Dallas defense that's iffy, right? one of their main guys, their main corners is a rookie in Diggs. I think Julio Jones is going to have a big game. I don't think Dallas has anybody that can stop this man, especially not with them not having Leighton Vander Esch in the middle. Julio's going to have a big game this weekend against Dallas, and if you don't start him, you're missing out. My tight end matchup is George Kittle. I don't know if I really need to say anything else besides the fact that they're playing against the Jets. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. As well as my pick for a defense, which is the 49ers defense, a defense that was probably a top five defense last year, going against easily the worst offense and the worst team in the NFL. They're going to score 15 plus in your league. I mark my words. This 49ers defense is going to go off. Nick Bosa is going to have at least two sacks. Or, I mean, say what you want to. This 49ers defense is going to go off this week. Up next, you got Matt Prater, kicker for the Lions. Now, for a similar reason that I was talking about Daniel Carson, is the same reason that I'm talking about Matt Prater this week. Because Matt Stafford, as good of a quarterback he is, they haven't been finishing drives as well. They had 23 points last week. They easily could have won the game off that touchdown, but that's another story. Matt Prater is going to be in there. He's got a crazy leg. He's still very accurate, still one of the best kickers in the game. He's going to go in there. He's going to score you points because Green Bay's defense, as it has gotten better, it's still not there yet. And I think Matt Stafford is still going to have his time with Green Bay. Detroit always lines up against them pretty well. I think Matt Prater is going to have a good game against that Green Bay special teams. Up next, you got my bad starts for week two. These are the people you want to avoid. If you have the option to start these guys, don't. Simple as that. My quarterback for this week is Carson Wentz. Now, I know a lot of people were disappointed in his performance and the Redskins' performance for last week. Carson Wentz is not going to play well this week. And the reason for that is because you see you see the Redskins, their defensive line got 8 sacks last week against this horrible Philly O line. So what do you think Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers are gonna do? They're gonna dismantle this team. They're gonna make it miserable for Carson Wentz. The Eagles are gonna have a horrible game and they're gonna go 0-2. Up next, my running back, and I actually have two for this one. My first one is David Johnson. I mean, they're going against probably, in my opinion, the best defense in the league. Call me biased. I don't care. David Johnson is not going to do well. We were able to shut down Nick Chubb, a top five running back in the league last year, to a pretty bad game for his standards. And now we're going up against a depleted O line in the Texans. Uh, David Johnson's not going to do anything this week. Mark my words. If you start him, you're going to lose. My second back that you want to avoid is Austin Eckler. Now, this one isn't as like, oh, it's adamant that you don't start this guy as David Johnson, but it's still pretty bad. The Chiefs have a top five, maybe even top three safety in the league in Tyrann Mathieu. They have a good defense. It's getting better. I just don't see Austin Eckler performing a whole lot better than he did week one. And personally, I own him in probably my most important league, and he sold for me. And personally, I don't see him improving much from that. They played against a Bengals defense that really isn't good. So now they're going against a Super Bowl caliber defense. It doesn't really match up for me. He didn't really get a whole lot of touches in the passing game. He was mostly relied on to be like a rusher, which isn't really his role. And once I see that the Chargers are using him more in the passing game is where I'm going to be able to trust him a little bit more. But for now, I wouldn't start him this week at all against the Chiefs. Up next, the two wide receivers I have Julian Edelman and T.Y. Hilton. Now, Julian Edelman had a horrible game last week in terms of his personal stats. The Patriots did fine, but personally, I just didn't like. If you started Julian Edelman last week, I'm sorry. And now they're going into Seattle, going up against one of the best defenses in the league. I don't see Julian Edelman doing a whole lot better than what he did last week against a poor Miami defense. I know that Miami has great corners, but Seattle has great everything on defense. I personally don't see Edelman having a great game. He wasn't really prominent in the last game, which is why I'm kind of iffy on him this week. And then T.Y. Hilton, they got a tough Vikings defense. Good corners. My favorite safety in the NFL, and Harrison Smith back there. I truly don't see Ty having a huge game. Again, they played the Jaguars and they couldn't score on the Jaguars. So how am I going to expect Philip Rivers to score on a defense that's so much better? And I know there's improvements and chemistry and all this other stuff, but I just don't see it. Um, you know, Tell me I'm wrong in the comments. That's fine. Ty is not going to have a great game this week. My tight end that you want to avoid this week is Hunter Henry for similar reasons that you want to avoid Austin Eckler. First off, if you have both of them, you're a bozo. What are you doing? Get rid of one of them, trade one of them, do what you got to do. Secondly, like I said, Tyrann Matthew is going to lock down Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's not going to do anything, especially with Tyrod Taylor throwing him the ball. Hunter Henry's going to have a poor game. If you start this man, you're not going to win, or at least you're not going to win your tight end matchup. The defenses that I would say to avoid next week are the Cowboys and the Patriots. The Cowboys are playing against the Falcons who just dropped a ridiculous amount of points on a very good team. They dropped 25 exactly. And personally, I don't think the Cowboys can hold them to 25. That Atlanta offense is too high powered with Todd Gurley, with Julio Jones, with Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan throwing them the ball. It is over for Dallas's defense next week. If you start them, you're not going to make many points from them. And Patriots are playing Seattle. I don't think I really need to explain it. Seattle is going to carve Patriots defense out like a pumpkin, man. This team is not going to hold them to any points. They're going to have to rely on their offense to do something, and even that's going to be really tough. Personally, I think Seattle's going to have their way with the Patriots defense, and we're going to kind of bring them back down to earth. And the kicker to avoid is Jake Elliott. I know I'm kind of hating on the Eagles a little bit right here, but I just don't like this matchup for them. I don't see Jake Elliott really doing a whole lot, considering I don't see their offense really doing a whole lot. My last segment that I'm going to do for today is going to be my trade away and my trade for. So basically, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you three players that I think you really need to try to avoid or try to get rid of if they're on your team. And I think three players that I think you should try to acquire, try to make your team a little bit better. The first person I'd say to trade away is Le'Veon Bell. He didn't show out at all in the first Jets game, and he's playing on the worst team in the NFL, and it's not even close. The Jets' offense is atrocious. Sam Darnold is a joke. Um, you need to get rid of this man because he's not going to do anything for you. Up next, you want to trade away Keenan Allen. Now it hurts for me to say because I'm a huge fan of Keenan Allen. I really love his game. I really like his route running. I think it's top three in the league easily. Keenan Allen is a great player, but with Tyrod Taylor throwing you the ball, I honestly just can't trust you. I just don't see Tyrod Taylor as being even a serviceable quarterback in this league. I genuinely don't. And until Justin Herbert starts, I don't see Keenan Allen being a viable source for you. And if you're relying on Keenan to be your wide receiver two, maybe your flex, you're going to be disappointed, which is why I'm saying trade him away now so you can get value for him and get your early season wins because playoffs are great and all, but they don't mean anything if you can't make it there. And then my last trade away player is Mark Ingram. I'm a Ravens fan, so that hurts me a little bit. But realistically, for me, that's all the Ravens running backs. I don't see any of them having a monster game like Jake. J.K. Dobbins just had a great game, right? But who's to say he's going to have another one next week, right? Because they have a three back system right now, four when Justice Hill comes back, it's no telling who's going to have a huge game week in and week out, and it's just kind of luck. And that's not a system that you really want to run when you have a 25% chance of having a good game from them and a 75% chance of them having an average to below average game. That's not a player you want to start. You want to try to find some value in Mark Ingram before people realize that he's not someone that you really want on your team. And now my last segment is three players that you need to trade for. My first one, Marquise Brown. This man went off. He didn't score a touchdown. That's fine. His route running is superb. His speed has gotten even faster. Marquise Brown is going to have a lights out year. If you don't trade for him now, you're going to regret it. That's all I'm going to say. Next up, Jonathan Taylor. Marlon Mack, as we know, is out for the year. Jonathan Taylor is going to step up. He's going to get a lot of those carries. He's going to be a huge part of that offense right now with him and Hines. But I do think trading for Jonathan Taylor now is going to be huge for you, not only now, but also later in the season. Because I don't think Hines is going to keep up that level of production to where I think Jonathan Taylor can. And my last player that you need to trade for might be a lot more difficult than the other two, but is Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee had a crazy stretch at the end of last year, and he's still proven to be a popular target for Jared Goff. And if you want a strong tight end presence in that position, you need to go try to look for this guy, try to figure out a trade for him. But other than that, you guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun making this, a lot of fun researching, trying to use my brain and think of different situations for you guys. If you guys have any questions, you have any thoughts, you need help deciding who you want to start, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I'll be happy to help anybody who needs help. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys enjoyed watching, and peace.